Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's webinar with Nexba. My name is Emily McFarlane. I'm the Senior Campaign Lead here at Birchal. And just before I introduce you to Drew and Troy, I'd like to begin by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land that we are coming to you from today. We are based on the lands of the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation, and we pay our respects to their elders, past, present, and emerging. As I mentioned, I'm joined by Drew and Troy, who are the founders of Nexba. So Birchal's working with Nexba on their upcoming crowdsource funding offer. A few of you might be a little bit unfamiliar with what crowdsource funding is, or CSF, or you might even know it as equity crowdfunding, but it's a relatively new form of fundraising in Australia, which allows startups and small businesses to raise capital from a large number of smaller or retail investors, as well as wholesale and sophisticated investors through an online platform such as Birchal. So instead of seeking funding from traditional sources such as venture capitalists or banks, companies can turn to the community, and often that might be their customers in a lot of cases, to raise money in exchange for equity in their business. Birchal Financial Services will be the licensed intermediary for the offer, and I do want to remind everybody who is watching today that the information and discussion in this webinar is for informational purposes only and should not be considered as financial advice or a recommendation to invest. Please do your own research and always consider the general CSF risk warning and offer document before investing. If you do need any more information, please head to birchal.com, or if you've got any questions, just reach out to support@birchal.com. Now, how today's session is going to run, I'm going to hand over to the boys and they'll take you through a great presentation on Nexba, which will run for approximately 15 to 20 minutes, and it will go through where they've come from and what they're looking to achieve with this capital raise. Then we'll switch to a Q&A session. So if you do have any questions during the presentation, you'll see a Q&A box at the bottom of your Zoom screen. So just pop your questions in there and we'll answer them all at the end. Finally, we are recording today's session, so if you do need to pop off early or if you'd like to share it with anybody who couldn't make it today, a recording will be sent around. So I'm sure you're done with me talking. I'm going to hand it over to the boys to present.
Beautiful. Thank you, Emily, and good to meet you all. Not that I can see your faces, but Drew and my name's Troy. I'm one of the co-founders, and then Drew is obviously my business partner and the other co-founder, and we're excited to share our journey. So I think we've got a presentation to go through.
Yeah, thanks guys. We're excited today. So I'm just going to see if I can get the tech working and get the presentation up. Can you guys all see that?
Yep.
Fantastic. Awesome. So Troy is going to kick us off. But yeah, welcome everyone to the webinar. If I can get through, we're going to go through over to Troy.
Nice. So it's fair to say, I don't know how many of you guys are familiar with our journey, but we are 14 going into our 15 years. And I think today, being on this platform with Birchal and having the opportunity to invite yourselves to become shareholders, investors, is a very exciting, I guess, milestone for our business. So historically, we've always, from an equity standpoint, we have big ambitions to remove sugars and artificials from all kind of food and beverages. And I think we began this journey with a big focus on Nexba. And today we're circa 20 million with an exciting growth plans to hit 30 million in the next 12 months in FY25. And that's largely underpinned by a hero brand, Nexba. But I think what's also key to how we are where we are in this journey is the fact that we've underpinned all our brands with GoodSweet, which is our Intel chip, which allows us to create great tasting, naturally sugar-free products. A bit about our expansion from Nexba to Goodness Group Global. This has largely come out of both Drew and myself weren't in this industry nearly 15 years ago. My background was law and communications, and Drew's background was engineering, but as fellow consumers, we're passionate about how do we get great tasting products without any of the artificial nasty stuff. So that's kind of what set us out on this mission. And Nexba has been that hero brand that we've focused on first. But clearly what we've learned in a global market is an opportunity as an Australian brand to take our Intel chip, our GoodSweet, and think of building that platform, which is what our evolution to Goodness Group Global is all about. So today, given the expansion of where we already are with Nexba and the markets that we're covering internationally, which we'll share, Goodness Group is really inviting, and this is our second extending our kind of recent raise with venture crowd with Birchal to allow our fans of the brand to join this journey as we continue to build our portfolio of brands that taste good and do good. So you can jump to the next one, Drew. If we think about where we are today, and I guess the key points to allow you guys to jump into Goodness Group Global, first off, we are absolutely winning and leading with naturally sugar-free and functional beverages, and that's the heartland of where our revenue today is with Nexba. I think the second piece is what I've already touched on in terms of at the heart of all our brands in our portfolio is the ability to leverage our good suite, which we spent nearly 6 years developing. So for us, it was, if you think back where we began in iced tea, there was two big brands, both packed with sugar or artificial ingredients. And our whole focus was over time, how do we remove the sugar? And that's where we came up with our good sweet Intel chip, which we now put across all our brands. The third piece is what I also touched on already, was having looked at the industry to build the best platform of better for you brands. It's very much about having great brands, great distribution, and then obviously the operational efficiencies from a platform. So that's what led us to look at, we know that there's more categories that we can take on with our IP, but Nexba is very much focused on that healthy functional soft drink brand, which is what is, now that we're Goodness Group Global, it's allowing us to build that platform in that fourth base of positive brands and products that make an impact. I think the other piece, as we think long-term, is we've already made a significant expansion as an Australian business outside of Australia, and we'll be excited to share how far we're going already with Nexba. But there's significant growth opportunities outside the core, I guess, revenue targets that we've got in forecasts with new brands and the portfolio that we continue to grow. Another fun piece is it's becoming more important than ever to be a ESG sustainable business long-term, and we proudly became B Corp certified last year. I think you guys are probably very much, as consumers, we're all across some of these trends, but just very quickly, if we think about what we're excited for in this next phase of growth, is that more importantly, consumers are continuing to reject sugar. And I think what's important, and a thing that we've always focused on, is this desire for natural. So if you think about beverages in isolation, in the UK as an example, there's nearly $2 billion of soft drinks that are all packed with aspartame, which is an artificial sweetener, which the World Health Organization finally came out. We've been waiting many, many years for this to be the case, but came out last year and exposed that things like aspartame and artificial sweeteners are linked to carcinogenics and causing harm. So for us, our whole premise of being is to continually get great tasting products that are all natural and can obviously reduce and remove sugar. A big trend that we also see is consumers wanting authenticity in the brands that they represent. So you've got Drew and myself, our founders. I think we've got an incredible team as we're expanding. We'll share some stuff with Pace, one of our most recent launched brands, which has Pat Cummins involved as well. But it's how do we do the right thing and have the right authenticity as we scale the business. And I think value and functionality is becoming more and more important. So if we think about Nexba, we have played in traditional soft drink categories, but the opportunity is you can be great tasting, obviously have our natural sugar-free benefit if we think about the Nexba brand, but more and more we've been winning in this emerging functional beverage space. So adding more to, I guess, the product that we consume. So there's a functional benefit. So that's at the heart of Nexba today with our kombuchas, nootropics, and better soda, which we'll share shortly.
Thanks, Troy. So we wanted to give you a bit of a company overview and really where we're going from a business strategy point of view. When it comes to expansion and what we're trying to achieve, we've really narrowed it down, and it's a very simple kind of focus in where we're going and where we're trying to expand. We see Australia as our home market. So for us, it's very much about partnering with the major retailers in a really big way to drive awareness, availability, and real volume in Australia. So, you know, Coles and Woolies, and we'll show this as well, has a huge selection of our products, not just under Nexba, but also under our other brands as well. So really important that in the Australian market, we continue to expand that distribution, not just in the major retailers, but into P&C. Really pleasing to announce we're launching in 7-Eleven and Ampol in mid-September with the Pace product. So that's part of our expansion into that P&C category, which allows consumers to, trial the product on the go and really sort of, I guess, increases the retail sales as well, because they get that on-the-go trial. And we're also going to the independent retailers in a really big way. So the Nissan partnership with it, which is a major distributor in Australia, is going really, really heavily into the independent grocery channel for us and supermarkets. So a really, really important channel to get right and just increase that availability in a big way. So the next kind of really big pillar for us has really been this international expansion, proving our products and brands that we have in Australia and making sure they work on an international level has been fundamental from what we've been trying to do. We launched in the UK about 4 years ago now. Really proud to say we're now the fastest growing kombucha in UK retail. We're in about 15 markets across the European markets. All the major retailers in the UK are stocking Nexba. Some really big, I think we just signed, we're doing a trial in Carrefour in France. So some really, really cool stuff in that UK market. And we see that, when we look at that market and the understanding of, we've got, say, 26 million people in Australia, the markets that were available in Europe makes up 250 million people. So there's a huge, huge opportunity for growth. And the fact that we've not only now proven Nexba in that international and European market, but we're actually the fastest growing kombucha brand over there, and one of the largest in total Europe, is a really exciting place to be, and probably just, I guess, backs up that strategy that we've been having of the last 3 or 4 years of pushing heavily into Europe. So focusing in on the Australian footprint, we, as I mentioned, we are in all the major retailers: Coles, Woolworths, obviously the independent with IGA. Costco have our products as well. In addition to that, we're now pushing into all of the petrol stations, 7-Eleven and Ampol next month, which is super exciting. What's even kind of more pleasing is that we're really playing in these growth categories as well. So when you look at the better for you beverage space, significant growth in the Australian market. We're one of the leaders in kombucha. It's kind of, we're right up the top there in terms of retail sales in Coles and Woolies, which is amazing. And we've got some really exciting stuff coming out in the next few weeks in the major retailers, which I would encourage everyone to look out for. But in addition to that, we're playing in this kind of better for you soft drink space as well, which is a real emerging category coming out of the US in huge ways. So brands like Poppy, Olipop, these functional soft drink brands with prebiotics and fiber, etc., really starting to take off. We launched ours in Woolworths about 8 weeks ago, and super encouraging. Baseline sales are going up every week, and we've sort of had some record promotional weeks. So a really great place to be playing in, and there's a lot of growth going into the future with that. On top of that, we've got a number of other brands outside of Nexba. One of those is the Good Brekkie. So we term this as nourishment on the go. Really exciting for us. That's available in Coles nationally. We're also selling that to Food Bank as part of their national schools program, where they give that out to about 1,500 schools nationwide. So really exciting sort of initiative there, and great growth. I think the latest data I saw went in about 9% growth in Coles for that pack group. So fantastic to see when you think about our major competitor in that market being up and goes a $400 million RSV business. There's a huge potential in the Good Brekkie alone. That's fantastic. We do also have, and we launched this late last year into First Choice nationally, Remix, which is our better for you premix alcoholic cocktail brands, using Aussie wine as a base. So we have strategically done that basically to ensure that there's value from the consumers. We're falling under the wet tax rather than the RTD tax, and it's a much better for you product, no added sugar, and we're really playing on the insights and trends that consumers are looking for: lower alcohol, as the kind of younger consumer You know, the sort of 20 to 30-year-old is looking for that lower alcohol, which is great. And then really excitingly as well, and we'll talk more about this, we launched our major sports hydration brand called Pace, which is in partnership with the Aussie cricket captain, Pat Cummins. His face is front and center on the bottle, which is fantastic. That has launched in IGA nationally with our Mono Nissan partnership. The repeat purchase is absolutely fantastic. I think last month we're about 155% of our forecast, so really, really strong start there. That is the product which is also going into 7-Eleven and Ampol service stations nationally. Very, very exciting. And then watch this space. Obviously, we are doing our very best to work with Coles and Woolies about the right timing for them to launch that as well. And we see that at the moment, the Pace Hydration range as the kind of leader in that Pace brand for us, with obviously range extensions and SKU extensions to come out of that as well. But super exciting in that space.
Yeah, I think we were in a meeting earlier today with the team, and Pace's target for 4 months was to get to 400 stores in the independence channel, and I think we're already at 440, so we've already surpassed in a couple of months that 4-month target, which is awesome. And I encourage, if you can't find your Pace in your local IGA, feel free to tell them that they need to get onto it, and the Mono Nissan can help get that in store for them.
Perfect. Troy will steal his, he'll get upset with me if I steal his thunder on the international reach, so I'll hand it over to Troy for this slide.
Yeah, I think for all of you who are looking at the opportunity to join and become shareholders in Goodness Group, I think what is unique to our business is the fact that as an Australian business with brands like Nexba, we wanted to prove that we could have international reach and scale. And the UK was very much our first investment test case for then knowing regionally we could expand out into Europe. So we were shipping pre-COVID out of Australia at negative margins, but knowing that once we can prove the acceptance, and one of the most nervous things as founders was you're shipping products overseas to get installed because you know that you've got a mission and a vision to remove sugar and artificials with great brands like Nexba. But what was super pleasing for us is the rates of sale that we achieved in Sainsbury's, and even more recently with Tesco. They've done a whole kind of functional layout, and we're front and center in that brand. And I think we're doing nearly 19 units per store per week per of our 1 litre variant, which is huge impact. And I guess that traction that we've got both locally at home in Australia and then what we have set up in the UK set us up for what is our business strategy to scale in a profitable way long term, and that is through local manufacturing, which we've now set up and established both in the Poland and the UK. But in terms of that, I guess, sales narrative in our industry, is the traction that we've got in the category with Nexba that they're playing in has allowed us to win very significant distributors, which are our partners to expand fast geographically in each country. So the Netherlands is an example. Lekker Frizz is an incredible partner. They represent big brands, but Jumbo is the equivalent of, say, Coles and Woolworths, and they're able to go in and secure that business for us with Nexba. And our rates of sale are incredibly strong, which has led to all those kind of logos that you can see. So every retail logo on that screen across those markets is what we're already in with Nexba. Super pleasingly, it was only about a month ago we launched into IKEA, which is super exciting. But now that we have got our manufacturing set up, we're anticipating significant growth in our hero lines with Nexba Kombucha. And if you think of the category of kombucha, which is quite established in Australia, in a region like Europe and the UK, it's nearly a 10th per capita consumption of where it is in Australia. So we're at the forefront in terms of market share in the UK, and now the markets that we're entering, we're leading kind of the great tasting kombucha, making it more mainstream. And the benefit is the category itself is in significant high growth. So we're going to enjoy that benefit over the years ahead as we scale. So
yeah,
that's
perfect.
Kind of
I think just to reiterate there, what you're seeing on the screen is the current footprint. We are already ranged in these countries, and the logos that you're seeing on the screen. This isn't a wish list; it's the current footprint. So we plan on obviously expanding that even further. But as it currently stands, we have a massive reach in Europe, which is awesome and fantastic.
one 2 weeks ago, which isn't on this slide. We actually just already signed contracts in Spain as well. So there's some exciting growth. And when you think about annualizing that growth, that's where the impact for the business will come. So you can jump on. I think across the business, it is about how do you leverage and have an impact with brand awareness and building. Hopefully you're familiar with our hero brand Nexba, but it's very much supporting the retailers and focusing on kind of these 4 buckets is how we think about building brands in each market. So you get paid media and heavily in terms of digital and access to where you can buy. So if you think a large part of our business is Coles and Woolworths, so the mechanics that you can tap into to make an impact there. From a PR perspective, hopefully you might have seen we've got some incredible coverage on Channel 7, Channel 9, Channel 10 last week with Pat Cummins and the launch of Pace, which is super exciting. And then if you have tasted our products, one thing that we know that we need to beat the big guys with is not negotiating on taste. So sampling in events is another way to obviously encourage that trial. There's those images are actually with our partner in Netherlands. There's some big activations that happen each year at the festival. And then that last piece as well is that shops activation in store. So encouraging people to trial, because what we do know is Nexba as our hero brand has incredible repeat purchase and loyalty rates once you taste it.
Perfect. And I think worth spending a bit of time on the team. We've Troy and I have always kind of had this, I guess, mentality of, trying to encourage, the best, I guess, that we've worked with or the best in the industry from other places and different things. And we've really tried to assemble the best possible team with the most experience that can really help us grow. And in fact, we have a saying that everyone we always employ, we actually want them to be better than us. Because I think you can just build a really an awesome team of superstars. So the first person on that list, David Warwick, our international CEO. He is got an amazing resume. He was the president of the British Soft Drinks Association. He owned his own brand in the UK called Feel Good Drinks and sold that to a private equity firm. He has a plethora of experience and amazing. He's been leading our UK team now for coming up to 6 years. Incredible sort of personality and ability to kind of lead the team over there. So I think we are going to hopefully do another webinar involving him during the deal phase when that opens up, so everyone gets the chance to hear from him on the ground in the UK, which I think will be really valuable as well. If we look at our Australian division, Dan Talbot, absolute superstar, been with us for 7 years. We pinched him from PepsiCo at the time, if there's anyone from PepsiCo on the call. He's fantastic, amazing resource of the business. Mike Williams, our head of sale, been with us for 3 years. Equally sort of impressive resume. Is able to really work with Coles and Woolies and build joint business plans in a way that we haven't been able to do before. So, getting significant ranging, working with them to understand their requirements and how we can build and grow is really one of his skill sets. Charlotte Petrus recently joined with us. She was the founder and CEO of Timelio, the debt financing facility. So she will be, and already has been, but will be an absolute fantastic, person on our team and resource for us going forward, and will bring a level of thinking that we haven't previously had in the business. So we are super excited by that. I'll hand over to Troy to talk about the international team as well.
Yeah, cool. I think what has led to our traction very fast is, as Drew touched on, how do we engage and get the best people. So even on an investor and advisor side, we've got incredible investors and advisors that have supported our network to allow us to have people like Laura Davis, who represents Nexba with the retailers in the UK. So she is a credible asset. And then Yap, who's on there, his background was actually Wurundjeri, if you're familiar with that brand. He was a general manager of that business and took it through a sale process and an end outcome. He then went to AG Bar and helped build the international division for those guys. And what's been great for us is since he left then, he's been able to jump over and support us with establishing the distributors. And on that previous map slide, that you had before, is how do we engage the best distributors in key countries so we can accelerate a fast and impactful launch for Nexba as the hero brand, and then other potential brands that we look to take regionally as well. And then Pete, there is a familiar last name there between Dan and Pete, but he's based in the UK. And ironically, they're both incredible in the operations side. He came to us from Unilever.
Awesome. So we're just going to go through a bit of the growth. I think Troy's going to take us through the key growth pillars first.
Yeah. So 14 years in this industry, and I think the expansion, the evolution of the Goodness Group Global is underpinned by really these three pillars: is to leverage the operational costs of the business. How do you make a bigger impact? And for us, it's to win with incredible brands, to absolutely continue to build that distribution, and then look at operational enhancements and ways to increase the margin across the portfolio and have an impact. So it's fair to say we're very proud and nice from a size-wise. We're in obviously 20 going to 30 million in FY25 is significant growth, but we've locked that in because we're focused on these pillars of who are our partners, being the retailers and customers and distribution, and how do we leverage our kind of cost base with the brands, which will be the next slide for Drew to share where our business is today.
Thanks, Troy. So on the brands, I think one thing to note is that Nexba, being the core brand, has a huge amount of growth left in it. I mentioned before that we've just launched Better Soda. So Nexba, Better Soda is under the Nexba brand as well. That's a completely new category, functional soft drinks for us to play in. Super exciting, very strong start to that brand. Really looking forward to how that goes, coming into spring and summer, being that we launched that at the start of winter, effectively. So really, really exciting. The Good Brekkie, which I've just touched on, is part of the broader Good Sorts portfolio, which we have another couple of SKUs that we're quite confident in launching this year as well. But that is all about this healthy nutrition piece. We are really absolutely giving or trying to get our fair share of the up and go sort of market in there. It's a really big piece. I think no one's really been able to do it so far, but really pleasingly, the Good Brekkie's launched in a really phenomenal way with good growth and is looking fantastic. So I think getting the right sort of branding, marketing behind that is going to be key to the growth of that brand.
I think one thing just to build on that, Drew, in terms of the Good Sorts, is both Drew and myself, we have kids, we have families, and we're passionate about what our kids consume. And the Good Brekkie is something that we spent years actually developing. How do we make an impact with a very healthier alternative in that space? So we're excited to have brought that to life, and it'll be fun to see how far that grows.
Okay. My 6-year-old is going to turn us broke by the amount of chocolate liquid brekkie, Good Brekkie that he consumes. So, and then the next brand being Remixed. I spoke about this earlier. That's our better for you alcohol brand, lower alcohol, using Aussie wine, no preservatives, no added sugar. Has launched in first choice nationally. We've got a really interesting route with this, where we've got the ambassadors and the marketing approach that we've taken to this is really going to be through social channels. So we've got some Aussie DJs that have made playlists that are on QR codes on pack. Consumers can scan it, takes them to a specific playlist made for each of the flavors, and really kind of moving this through that sort of music and social scene. And then the last one being Pace, which we are incredibly excited about, launched incredibly well. And I sort of mentioned that hydration is the first, range that'll be going out under that brand. But we're already branching out into, the very likely protein waters and better for you energies and everything in that kind of sports area. So really exciting. And yeah, definitely one to keep watching over the next 6 months.
I think just whilst we pause on that slide, Drew, what was happening with Nexba in the history of Goodness Group is our relationship with retailers meant that we've always been very first with innovation, and we're extending across multiple categories. I think our experience in this industry with the team we've got was now how do we show up and play within categories that make a big impact. So Pace is an example of having Pat was a big fan of kombucha. He obviously joined Goodness Group Global as a stakeholder and then developed Pace as that brand to really win. And how do we show up and have better liquids in a category that's already established, by obviously coming out and trying to, I guess, make sure there's every reason for a retailer to say yes to taking that product. So super excited to see how these roll out. The next pillar is distribution. I think we've touched on a bit of this already. So if we think about our growth that we're enjoying between FY24 and 25, largely about expansion into new channels. So petrol and convenience becoming a bigger focus, and then Modern Nissan being a partner as well in terms of the independent channel. And then we've already touched on in terms of the international side, it really is now that we've got that regional manufacturing both in Poland and the UK. It's about celebrating, leveraging the wins and the rates of sale that we've got in the markets that we're already in to sign on really key distributors in each new market to take on the brand and to get the traction that we're enjoying in the other markets. I guess the third element in the last piece, and we've touched on a bit of this already, is that constantly looking on how to improve the profitability long-term of Goodness Group Global from an operational improvements perspective. So the elements that we've done in the Australian market was in this environment, as we've shared, leveraging the operational overhead across more brands and volume is a big part of that strategy, and also looking at within every single category we're already playing, how do we optimize the formats with the manufacturing partners that we've got to improve the margin and the accessibility for consumers, which ultimately drives your revenue and your gross profit moving forward. And then on the international side, it was that manufacturing. So we're producing with Taka in the UK and Krynica Vitamin in Poland. And we actually co-invested to give us, a leading with that format in functional beverages with the 1 litre. So we have a bespoke line in the UK, which gives us flexibility for how we innovate and how we can get these great tasting products to market in a fast way.
Awesome. So guys, that takes us to the end of our presentation part of it. We'd love everyone to stick around and ask questions. We love sort of talking about the brand and the strategy and where we're going. So I guess we'll finish up there and hand it over to everyone for questions.
Thanks so much, guys. That was brilliant. I'd love it if you could stop sharing your screen so I can see your beautiful faces. Thank you. So coming up, obviously, you've expanded into a lot of markets so far. What was the strategy behind where you chose to actually focus your energy on?
Yeah, I'm happy. Obviously, as a scale-up business, you've only got a certain amount of resources and focus. So for us, we know that Nexba and GoodSweet IP is a global opportunity. So every market deserves it. I think regionally, we literally had a trip booked to the UK and then California. And the focus was if we secure a lead retailer in a market, we'll stick there and we'll focus there. So on the first trip to the UK, we actually secured Sainsbury's and became part of their Future Brands initiative. So that meant that regionally we focused there. Including the next period of growth, we are already been selling into South Korea, and clearly the greater an Australian brand has track record in new markets opens up further opportunities into Asia. But again, we just want to do that with the right partners.
Great, thank you. So your EBITDA is expected to be 10% of revenue. Are there any plans to increase or reach 20% EBITDA? And have you done any research into what your competitors have?
Yeah, for sure. Great question. Thank you. I think in the Australian market in particular, to go from 10 to 20%, it is absolutely comes down to what we kind of had in that third bucket of focus in terms of operations. So that would involve manufacturing becoming part of our business locally. So the best businesses in our industry would be around 18% in Australia, but they have in-house manufacturing. So achieving our kind of growth 10% through great partnerships is what we're focused on through the right formats and working with our partners. But obviously we do know that in this environment and what we've learned for years, Drew and myself have worked pre-COVID we were doing a very different round and working with investment banks like Moelis and Houlihan Lokey and learning about the private equity landscape and vertical integration. So we do know that, and that's the whole purpose behind Goodness Group Global, is it can give us the strategic choices over time to look at bringing further brands to increase EBITDA and also that manufacturing piece at the right time to make a significant impact with the volume and the size that we're getting to.
Awesome, thank you. So obviously the drinks market is quite saturated and there's a lot of kombucha brands out there. Why do you think yours is so successful versus other competitors?
Yeah, I think one thing that we focused on really, really early on has it always been taste. So it's super important. Consumers, taste is king. They're not willing to compromise on taste, and they won't come back. And there will be no repeat purchase if you're not getting that taste right. So with our sort of, I guess, background and the IP that we have around Good Sweet, so our natural sugar-free sweetener, we were able to effectively create these functional beverages and kombucha, which tasted much closer to a really healthy soft drink rather than the traditional kombucha, which has that strong fermented flavor. Much more mainstream, but really importantly, rather than compromising on the health benefits, we actually fortified the health benefits by adding what's called bacillus coagulants. So they were basically a lactobacillus, which was encased, made it down into your gut to ensure that it was efficacious and creating that good gut bacteria. So I think consumers now, 4 years in market, 5 years in market with the kombucha portfolio, not only are they used to a great tasting product, they're also understanding the health benefits that Nexba has over competitors. So that was, our view of why we've been so much more successful than some of the other kombucha brands that haven't cracked into the major retailers and really got that national distribution. So hopefully that answers that.
We probably don't actually share it enough, but we're one of the only brands in this space that are FSANZ approved. So the Food Safety Australia New Zealand, they can actually say it promotes good gut health. And that's kind of what Drew was touching on before, which was we wanted to add even further benefit than just kombucha. Shelf life, sorry, just saw a question pop up. Thank you. In terms of the shelf life of our products, yeah, we don't have preservatives. Anything that's in our PET in terms of shelf life is typically around 12 months. If you're cans, that can allow for a longer shelf life as well, which I think Drew will be adding to 24 months. Correct?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's right. So we basically clean fill everything or heat treat to making sure that we're obviously not using any preservatives and tunnel pasteurization, etc. So yeah, different down to kind of 12 months for PET and up to 24 months for cans.
Awesome, thank you. Are you looking to expand into food market rather than just the drinks market?
Our focus for the immediate kind of business plan is absolutely win big with beverages, but we actually have already developed, we love innovation. So we've developed snacking products. We've worked with people like the Cheesecake Shop in removing sugar and adding Good Sweet. So they actually, in the Black Forest cheesecake, they removed 500 grams of sugar and replaced that with Good Sweet. So we know that our IP can move into food, but we just want to do it in the right way. But in terms of the immediate business plan, all the revenues focus from beverages, which is where we know we can win in a big way. But I think watch this space. We're hoping to kind of powder form some of our brands to allow us to accelerate some of the online reach as well. Because in the Australian market, for non-alcoholic beverages, I guess the distribution costs make it not commercial to ship online. But obviously our IP, if we powder form, could create a really exciting opportunity in an online space. So there might be incremental revenue coming from that pathway.
Speaking of IP, do you expect to have any issues around defensibility of your product or IP?
No, I think we're patent pending in a number of jurisdictions. I think at the end of the day, we want all brands to be naturally sugar-free. And I think brand business credibility is we're going to be prolific patenters and always wanting to improve how we make products naturally sugar-free over time. But we are unique in the sense that we've been having Good Sweet in Nexba for many, many years, and we were the first to file for the patent. So that kind of gives us that brand credibility when working with retailers and customers that trust the fact that we have this proven IP and proven taste that can go into new spaces. But the right thing for consumers would be that more and more brands are naturally sugar-free.
Yeah, I think just to add to that a little bit, with Good Sweet in effect is one of our brands, and because of that, we actually are talking to other companies in this space that want to use it, but because of our sort of, I guess, overall volume and how much we produce, access to ingredients, etc., it makes a lot of sense for us to be able to supply that to them on a royalty type or licensing agreement. So that's something we are doing and have looked at even further. But as Troy said, our vision and mission is for removing as much sugar and artificial ingredients as we can. So if that's through our brands or that's a licensing arrangement, we're really happy to have those conversations.
What would you say the main difference is between Good Sweet and a product like stevia or Equal, for example?
Yeah, so two different things there. Stevia is a natural sweetener, number one. Equal is one of the artificial sweeteners. So Equals uses aspartame. So there's kind of two things if you think about it. There's artificial sweeteners and then there's natural sweeteners as well. What we've done and how Good Sweet is actually made up in our patented blend, because we've got a patent innovation patent in Australia. It is a combination of different natural sweeteners, but we also use natural mouthfeel enhancers and receptor blockers as well to basically give you the experience, mouthfeel, and taste that you would experience when you're having sugar. And what I mean by that is a sweetener like stevia is about 300 times sweeter than sugar. It's called an intensive sweetener. So it gives you this big spike. We've used a natural mouthfeel receptor blocker to basically block the receptors in your tongue or on your tongue at the time when you would be experiencing that extreme sweetness spike. So it blocks that out, and basically that makes up part of the technology, which in totality is kind of sums up as the Good Sweet, effectively copying that sugar curve and taste of sugar.
Makes a lot of sense. Do you have a timeline to saturate the European geography and then look to launch into the US?
Yeah, I think if David Warwick, our international CEO, was here, he probably wouldn't like me sharing. I think his personal target is we should be in 20 markets in Europe by the end of FY25, which will present kind of upside to the current budget and forecast. In terms of the USA, we've learned a lot in terms of what we've established in the region of UK and Europe. There are some specific brands and products and retailers that which may lead us to the US faster. We've got good relationship with Costco in Australia, and there is a model for expanding in the US with that. We know that Pace and both Nexba would offer a lot to that region. But at the moment for FY25, we aren't planning to be in the US, but when we do, it'll be through all our learnings. So going with the right retailers fast and manufacturing in a way that ensures that we have an ability to scale fast with this reduced investment. So it's definitely a region that we want to go.
Awesome. Thank you. So when you were coming up with the new brand Pace, what inspired you to choose Pat Cummins as an ambassador versus other ambassadors out there?
Yeah, I think a couple of reasons. I think Pat is obviously, a sporting hero of Australia. He really is seen as someone for the younger generation to look up to in a big way. He's absolutely known or sort of recognised as one of the elite, most recognised wholesome sporting people in Australia. So he aligned with a lot of our values, but his values as well are very much about ESG, healthy living, better for you sort of products, etc. So there was a real synergy and alignment in the values of what we're trying to achieve together. I think when we also look at, and this is probably a really important one to kind of discuss when we're talking about Pace, Pat is not just an Australian kind of celebrity. He's actually a huge popularity, hugely popular in India and some of the other nations where cricket's an important staple of the sporting landscape. And I think even in this kind of period as we're looking to raise money, the interest from India, both from consumers and manufacturers and people that want pace over there yesterday, is pretty overwhelming. So we know that's a really, really big opportunity for us in how we can kind of go. Pace will be a really big brand in Australia. Pace could be absolutely huge in regions like India. But you got to do it right. You have to have the right partners, etc. From a manufacturing perspective, distribution perspective. So we are currently working through that and looking at what formats look like as well.
I think in terms of why Pat and other people, like the Goodness Group, will look at how do we get the right, I guess, parties and representing and ambassadors supporting the brands. Pat did join Goodness Group as a fan of Nexba and kombucha, so that was obviously occurred first. And then clearly it made a lot of sense. And sports is a high growth category, and a category that is dominated by two big players that we know that we could make a liquid, and in the words of Pat, that athletes will actually consume. So that's what the development of Pace was about.
Brilliant. So looking at servicing new markets, in particular India, how long do you feel you kind of have in terms of a runway to get there versus people losing interest? Because obviously they know about the brand now, they know that Pace exists, there's a demand for it. How long do you have to actually get into that market and service that demand?
Well, I don't think there's any risk in terms of timeline. I think the further that the business is growing and size-wise means that you're only going to have more presence or reason to be in a market at that point in time. So I don't think there's a nervousness of when. It's just that what we have learned is the way you launch into a market is you want to do it with the right partners in the right way. So a region like India, it will make sense from a manufacturing there is quite, how do you partner in the right way to ensure that the commercials make sense. So we're already exploring who would be the right partners to manufacture with, to allow us speed to market with the great tasting either Nexba and Pace in that space.
Yeah, so just to kind of say that a little bit clearer, the wheels are actually already rolling in the Indian market, and we're doing investigations about what is the right pack price architecture, the right format to go over there with the right partner. So it's not something that's in our forecast as it currently stands, and probably not something that we see as an FY25 initiative. Probably more FY26 or late FY25, if at all.
I guess from an investment perspective, it's all upside. So I think that's the positive thing for joining the journey.
Yep. I've just seen a question in regards to the FSANZ approval for gut health, and do we think that will get into other markets? Obviously, each market has a different governing body when it comes to health, and we work with the local markets. We have the UK has slightly nuances and different sort of definitions of probiotics. As an example, over there our messaging is live cultures. That's just what we have to use over there. So each market's slightly different, but the science behind the bacillus coagulant technology that we use is white paper research, which is a global, sort of globally recognized, etc. So we can make, the same sort of relative claims in each market, and we work with the governing health bodies over there to do that when we need to.
Great, good to know. So where does the Nexba name come from?
So I started this company, obviously Troy and I started it. I had been in a surf spot in Mexico called Rio Nexba, and that was effectively that's where we came up with the idea, which is awesome. But Troy's got his own sort of version that it's Next Beverages Australia. But I think all of that aside, the really great thing about Nexba is that it is a super unique name that is absolutely ownable. And I think that is part of the reason why it has become such a household name, being so unique and so ownable, and really is known and synonymous now with being naturally sugar-free, is really what's super exciting about that brand and that name.
Thanks. We got a good question. Appreciate that, John. In terms of, for those that are new to crowdfunding, Star Ventures, how do you see a return on your investment? He's also excited by pace, so just thought I'd share that out loud. I think as custodians, both Drew and I are obviously shareholders of Goodness Group, and we're custodians of people that have joined our journey since the back end of beginning of 2018 was kind of when we had our first investors join our journey. Clearly, it is all about where are you heading and how do you create financial landmarks and liquidity for people that join the journey. So in this sense, we are a private business. So you are investing, and the way that a return would happen is we're not a business planning to do dividends. It's very much about, can we achieve a financial landmark, and by that effectively a sale point where there will be a return to investors. So we're focused on the next kind of 2 to 4 years of executing our business plan, having the business move into a nice EBITDA positive territory, and significant revenue growth, which should attract a nice return and an exit.
Great, thank you so much. Obviously, you've got a lot of new investors on board after completing a recent equity crowdfunding raise. How do you currently communicate with those investors, and how do you intend to communicate with them in the future?
Yeah.
So
you can go.
I can jump in. Yeah. So for us, obviously, when you come in as an investor, everyone's coming in on the same, I guess, ordinary shares, and everyone's treated in the same way. From the people that came in 2018, in terms of the communication, we're really active in that space. We're sending out at least quarterly communication updates, as well as a sort of end of year larger update and business update. You'll probably hear from us too much, you'll get sick of us as well. But in addition to that, obviously, everyone's got our contact details and can get in contact if there's any sort of ad hoc, questions or things that need to be answered or discussed. But yeah, we're certainly on the higher side of communication for sure.
Awesome. And for those who already love the brand, are you planning on doing rewards for your offer when it opens?
We are. So we have some pretty exciting rewards that we'll probably be announcing. I don't know if we announce, Emily, this is probably a question to you. I'm not sure if we announce that prior to the deal opening or once the deal is open, but definitely something that fans of the brand are going to want to know about, both as in the existing Nexba brand, but also some pretty exciting stuff with the Pace brand as well. So there'll be some, really interesting rewards.
Awesome, that's good to know. And for people who are considering becoming shareholders in the brand, will they be able to contribute in any way to product developments or testing, research and development, anything like that?
I think as you touched on, like, you are as big as your community. So this is kind of part of the reason why we're excited to be with Birchal and offering our first kind of, historically, we haven't done crowdfunding in this way. And it's very much because of where the brand is, how to invite the consumers that love the brands to get involved. So yeah, we obviously welcome people to share their ideas and thoughts. Obviously, we try to be very focused with our strategy and how we implement. But yeah, we oft, as Drew touched on, typically we'll have an annual shareholder event where there has been the experience where we'll share tastings and things that are occurring. But watch this space. All we ask is involved.
Yeah, and I think just to add a little bit to that, many of our existing shareholders have added significant value, whether that's introductions to sort of potentially different manufacturers, suppliers, customers, etc., or more strategic type things as well. We've had a lot of really good value from our existing investors, and we would love the same from anyone coming on board at any time.
And as founders, what have been your most inspiring or exciting collaborations to date?
I think it's a really good question, and it's easy to kind of look towards what's happening right now. So I might start on that. I think the Pat Cummins collaboration with the Pace brands is could be absolutely enormous, and I think we've got probably the most popular and well-known athlete in Australia fronting and representing what is effectively the best and better for you sports hydration brand on the market today, and we're going to grow that significantly. So that's super exciting. And then also the ability or the potential for that to scale overseas in the Indian market and is absolutely enormous. So for me, I'll probably pinpoint that as the most exciting collaboration.
I think for me, it's every moment, like over the 14 years, it's every big partnership that's kind of step changed the business. So it goes back to our first ever national retailer with 7-Eleven. That was an exciting moment. Obviously, the way we collaborate with Coles and Woolies is always exciting with how we bring brands and products to life. And obviously, I've had a big focus on the international piece. So Sainsbury's was really that proof point of the brand's acceptance globally that's now led to this scale that we're getting. So for me, that's probably a standout, and kind of loved being, I was sampling in the head office at Sainsbury's, and we actually met our distributor in that sampling exercise whilst we're there as well. In terms of I don't know if you'll jump on that one, Emily, but in terms of the terms of this raise, we're raising at 90 cents per ordinary share.
Great. So if anybody does want to see the full terms of the offer, they will be released when the offer goes live. So if you haven't expressed interest in the campaign already, I would encourage you to do so via the Birchal website. I'll also pop it in the chat so it's easy access for everybody. And if you do want to get in touch with the boys at Nexba, there is a message button on the profile, so you can reach out to them directly in that way. So I don't think we've got any more questions today, but if you do have any more questions once we've finished here, please reach out to either the team at Nexba or the team at Birchal. We'd be happy to help, and keep an eye on your emails. We'll let you know as soon as the offer goes live. Timing on the deal going live at the moment is looking at the 3rd of September. And I think that's all. Thank you everybody so much for coming and for your amazing questions. Really appreciate it. And thank you, Drew and Troy, for your time as well. It's been amazing.
Awesome. Thank you
Thank you
guys.
so much. Thanks, guys. Cheers.